I think one of the biggest problems we're seeing on the left with many socialists, the rise of socialists in Congress, is that they just don't have a general understanding of economics and the definition of words. Now, it may be deliberate that within universities they lie to people and mislead you, or it could just be that many of these professors also have no idea what the hell they're really talking about. Well, this tweet started going viral. And I want to do one thing and just ask, I know it's kind of pointless, but please don't, brigade people with just like the worst of the worst. Just because this person says something dumb doesn't mean I want to actively avoid anybody being drowned out with just, insults and harsh words. Again, do your thing. I'm not telling you not to do whatever you want. Just keep it in mind. It makes us all look bad. But more importantly, let's get to the ideology of socialism and some of the silly and stupid stupid ideas they push, and then try and push back, yada, yada. Look, Comrade Valentina tweeted, "Dudes be like, quote, I love capitalism. Like, okay, where's your factory? Where's your capital? You don't even own your car." First of all, millennials are not buying cars so much anymore because you don't need them when you live in a city, and many people are, in cities just don't buy them. But so I responded to this, and I'll just show you my response. I said, she says, as they both look back at their high-end smartphones while drinking imported coffee at a boutique cafe in an overpriced hipster neighborhood, he then whispers back, ugh, we're so oppressed. Because as we all know, capitalism only works if everyone owns a factory. So let's break some of this stuff down. First of all, who owns a factory anymore? Manufacturing was decimated in this country due to automation and outsourcing, which is not a problem of capitalism necessarily. It's a problem of government, but it's also an issue of technology. Now, first of all, we actually do. Many of us own factories. Not in the traditional sense like you got a coal-burning factory and you go and, you're sitting in a big chair like Mr. Burns in The Simpsons, but because your pension, your 401k, or your stock is you're owning public shares of a publicly traded company. So do I own a factory? No, but I do to an extent own some means of production because I bought stock in some tech companies, which means those tech companies that are producing and innovating, I do own a piece of. Thank you, capitalism. They also don't seem to realize that the core of capitalism is not owning a factory or being wealthy. Since when was capitalism ever just this promise that literally everybody in the world is going to own a factory? That's insane, okay? But we can look at the charts. We all know we know it's true that as everybody gets slowly lifted up, that literacy is way up. People today. Let me tell you the point of this tweet. They both are sitting there looking at their high-end smartphones, drinking imported coffee at a boutique cafe in an overpriced neighborhood. I'm trying to make a few points. For one, many of these young socialists live in overpriced neighborhoods. They shouldn't live there. Go to New York, for instance. My God, how many of these democratic socialist people do I know that live in areas where they're spending $1,000 a month on their apartment? I'm okay. I almost started. You know what? I'll just say it. I have an ex that lives in Williamsburg and is broke and is a socialist and spends over $1,000 on rent. And I asked her, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you go to a less wealthy area? And her response, but I want to live here. Great. That was your choice. Isn't capitalism great that you are allowed to prioritize your income towards a neighborhood instead of what would actually improve society? Yes. You made that choice while simultaneously arguing against it. She's particularly wealthy anyway. I mean, at least somewhat. The other issue is you have high-end smartphones. The other people in this world who don't live in the US or in the West do not have high-end smartphones. In fact, many of them don't have smartphones at all. And so the idea here is that they're so oppressed. Oh, it's so unfair. When in reality, no, actually capitalism has done you great things. Just because some people work harder, they choose to, they were luckier, doesn't mean life is bad for you. No, we have clean water. We have emergency services, whether or not, check this out. You cannot have a job. So this woman, Comrade Valentina, could literally choose to sit in her own filth in the middle of a city, and you're legally allowed to do it. And the best part is, not only will firefighters, paramedics, and police still take care of her when they need to, albeit you might get into some trouble because there's absolutely bias and classism. Not only that, but clean drinking water and charity services, meaning you can choose to not work. You literally can. And then when you need a shower, you can go to a charity and they'll probably take care of you. My God, what a glorious system we live in. Is it perfect? No. Are there poor people? Yes. But let's talk about some of the absurdly silly criticisms that pop up. So I love this comic here, which you've probably seen, and it's the stupidest comic made by someone who really doesn't understand. Notice they put the I am very intelligent. Let's read it. Here's someone sitting down on their phone. Apple AirPods cost $159, but they can't pay taxes or decent wages to their Chinese factory workers. Post. You said on an iPhone, heh, gotcha. First of all, this person responded to me with this. My criticism was not about the fact that they're using smartphones to complain about it. My criticism was that they're extremely wealthy and demanding socialism. That's the difference. You're literally a rich person saying, stupid rich people. It's not necessarily the same thing. But regardless, this comic is really, really, really dumb. Let's move on to the next panel. Cars should have seatbelts. Yet you bought one. Hypocrite? Owned. Hypocrite much? Owned. And the last one. A peasant carrying a bundle of sticks. We should improve society somewhat. Yet you participate in society. Curious. I am very intelligent. None of these things directly deal with the actual criticism. This is an individual who says, Apple AirPods cost $159 and they can't pay decent wages to Chinese factory workers. On an iPhone? Okay, actually that is hypocrisy. Why are you financially supporting a company when you know they're ripping you off and not supporting factory workers in China? Don't buy their product. Okay? I was talking to, I have a friend, was sitting on her computer and she was telling me how she wants to make the world a better place. And I immediately responded with, yeah, for your community, for like your country, for like where you live. And she said, no, I want to make the world a better place for everybody. And I said, well, no, the activism you're doing directly benefits you and your immediate friends. You have no idea what's benefiting people in other countries. And she was like, well, I think, I can work towards helping everybody. And I said, listen, you're sitting here on a laptop. I believe it was Samsung. I was like, probably made at Foxconn. The people in those factories are desperate and are taking jobs where they're working just in such horrifying conditions, they're committing suicide. You didn't have to buy that laptop. You don't need the laptop. And she said, I'm more effective this way. And I agree. Absolutely. You are more effective. You're also contributing to the suffering of people who are so desperate they don't really have the choice and they're working in slave-like conditions to the point where they're committing mass suicide. Sure. I think there's a line where you can say if someone chooses to work to make this, computer part, fine. But when you live in crammed cities, they're taking your water away for the Olympics, and then you finally say enough is enough and commit suicide, I think that's a point where you can say, maybe I shouldn't be supporting this company and they should be paying more. Maybe we should be supporting sweatshop labor. You will hear industrialists say things like, they're better off with the jobs than without. To an extent, I can agree with that. But there are certain levels that we should try to maintain. This is why I'm rather socially liberal and not free market capitalist or a socialist. Because the answer isn't everyone gets everything, which seems to be their argument. Everyone should own a factory. That makes no sense. The argument is kind of, let's just do what we can to try and maintain some kind of minimum standard to the best of our abilities. Sometimes we won't be able to succeed and people will suffer, but you know what? It is what it is. Now let's look at the rather insane bottom two panels that make literally no sense. Cars should have seatbelts. Yet you bought one. Hypocrite? That literally makes no sense. This is not even an argument anyone has. If you buy a car and you think it should have a seatbelt, you can install one yourself. Why would you want anyone else to have a seatbelt in their car? This panel is nonsense. And the last one, we should improve society somewhat. Yes, a feudal peasant who is upset that they're a feudal peasant wants to change things. That's totally different than supporting. It would be different if this person said, I support feudalism and was a peasant. If they said, I think the system we all live in is a good thing, but I want more, then I'd be like, listen, if you're in a situation you don't like, and you're supporting the situation by paying into it and like actively saying, I encourage this behavior, well, then maybe you're being a hypocrite. If you're going to complain about Apple not doing, right by their workers, but then buy a smartphone that has like an 80% profit margin, dramatically overpriced. There was an article that said it was like $200 to make a phone they sell for $1,000. Okay, if you're going to hand them an $800 profit because you want that phone, why didn't you buy an Android? But it gets better. Over on r/socialism, we have this. Considering our current global level of economic development and the fact that we can feed 10 billion people with our modern-day agricultural production, it should be considered a basic human right to have health care without it burdening you financially. Because as Marx said before, if you cannot secure the material base, then bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then you cannot attain greater levels of positive freedom and contribute to a society with such prodigious acts. You force the individual to be subjugated to those who control the production and distribution of such goods and services. Therefore, in order to be free, we must fight for universal health care. We shall secure what gives us the foundation for positive freedom. Because an impecunious person begging for a dime cannot truly be free. It is merely deceitful to use capitalism's negative freedoms as a smokescreen for such horrendous enslavement. That's wrong. And I'll tell you why. Freedom. What does freedom mean? It means you can go and do whatever you want. And in reality, in this world, you literally are 100% free to do whatever you want. If you do things that other people don't want, they will stop you. Such as, you can literally go and commit a crime. You have the physical freedom to do so. But eventually someone will stop you. What ends up happening is you'll find that some people live beneath the law. They break the law, they live in the underground, because you literally can do these things. However, if the government, the authority finds out, they'll stop you. But let's talk about healthcare as a human right, because the socialists don't seem to understand this issue. Now, I am absolutely in favor of socialized medicine for a few reasons, and with a few caveats. At current, my public support would probably be for a public option at the current level, and maybe like a base level of care that can guarantee only some small, simple things. Let me explain why. I do not believe the market properly incentivizes healthcare. Some people have said that because of all the regulations, it results in the costs of becoming a doctor to be too high, and it's actually the regulation that results in this problem. However, I don't like the idea of dirty scalpels and back alley abortions, and when it comes to medicine, it's hard to actually know what is good and what is bad. There's an argument that in a free market, you'll just go to the good doctors, but of course the good doctors will charge the best, meaning an unregulated medical industry will result in some people going to bad doctors and then probably getting sick and dying, and this can contribute to the spread of pathogens, the weakening of antibiotics. It's actually really, really complicated. It is. And I don't believe I know all the answers. But ultimately, I lean towards some kind of socialized system if it can be implemented. So I'm willing to support someone who wants to explore it, although I'm not entirely sure it's possible. Yes, we see other countries implement this, countries that are substantially smaller than ours. And when it comes to something like the Eurozone, although they do have a comparable population to ours, I think it's much higher actually, their individualized states manage their healthcare systems, and they are facing some trouble. But let's talk about this idea that healthcare should be universal, because there's one inherent problem when you're dealing with a market-based system that deals with life, deals with keeping someone alive. Should someone be allowed to, is it a right for someone to own a brand new iPhone? The answer is resoundingly no. And I don't think even a socialist would tell you they have a right to own a brand new cell phone. But a socialist might say, but they do have a right to own a phone. Well, I don't know about a right, because somebody has to make that phone. Somebody has to perform medical procedures. But more importantly, today, you will see posts on social media where someone says something to the effect, my medication costs $1,000 per month. This is unfair, and the government should intervene. In some of these instances, we have situations where somebody will buy out a company and jack the price up. That's kind of screwed up. They'll claim it's, but we have to innovate. No, listen. If you're jacking up the price on an existing medication, you're screwing people over, and there should probably be some kind of restriction and regulation from exploiting people who literally are trying not to die, okay? If you want to talk about a captive market, let's talk about someone who's desperately in need of medication. But let's make another very important point in the other direction. If today I invest a ton of money into a new medication and cure a disease, you do not have a right to that cure because the cure requires resources to produce. So what ends up happening is some of these stories we see where someone says, my medication costs $1,000, it's unfair. It's like, yeah, well, listen, dude, it cost $1 billion of research and development to produce that cure. And now people are trying to actually mass produce it, implement it, and it requires capital. If we don't have that investment, there wouldn't be a cure in the first place. So you're complaining about the fact that literally a cure that was just invented that didn't exist a year ago is really, really expensive. Well, congratulations, you get to live now. The people a year ago died. Or maybe they're so far gone, the cure won't help them at this point. And that's what people fail to realize. Sometimes a treatment is new, so it becomes expensive. When the new iPhone comes out, you do not have a right to a brand new, very expensive iPhone. But I think we can provide some base level of support. The most important issue here is that as time goes on and things become cheaper and cheaper, we do have access to basic medical care for people. So the issue is really, people don't seem to understand, I think it's because of the emotional aspect pertaining to socialized medicine, They think someone shouldn't die, give them that medication. Our current system doesn't support just giving the most expensive medications. And you also need to realize it's not the same as, like, so listen, there may be a disease today that affects a very, very large group of people. Let's say 1 million people all have this one debilitating disease that will take their lives. Someone invents a cure. Those 1 million people now say, we're going to vote because we have a right to that cure. But can we mass produce it? And can we fund further development? If we tell the businesses, your cure is now our cure, and we're going to mass produce it and take it away from you because we don't want to die, which I can understand. Nobody wants to die. You're going to do what you have to do. Recognize that you may actually hinder the development of newer cures. Now, ultimately, I do lean towards socialized medicine and even, to an extent, some kind of government grant service for the development of cures in the long run, because I think a market system will incentivize the abatement or treatment of symptoms as opposed to actually curing the underlying condition, and it's a big challenge. I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world, but at the time being, I'm currently more in support of a public option that people can buy into to guarantee they're not being price gouged, while at the same time not causing massive economic damage. I think if we start here, we can slowly move towards a system where there will be a base level of care, but also a premium level of care for people who want to pay for better services. Ultimately, it's a big challenge. So back to the main point. This right here is a silly nonsense argument that loves to get, pushed around by people who are like, I can own a smartphone and complain about it. You sure can, but we're still going to call you a hypocrite. Here's something they're posting, and I feel bad for this model because I don't think this model is overly political, but it says, hates capitalism but loves capitalism. Yes, please. You really, really should not buy extremely expensive branded products if you're trying to change the system because you are actively supporting them. So yes, it is a complete ignorance or straight up hypocrisy. We'll leave it at that. I got another video coming up for you at 4 p.m. I will see you then. That's going to be on the main channel, youtube.com/timcast.